Welcome to the Grinders Table, the podcast where we sit with C-suite executives and founders who are taking their industry by storm to figure out how you can build an exceptional career and business. Together, we'll try to uncover how they are both defying the odds and what you can learn from their experience. Hi everyone, welcome to another week of the Grinders Table. And today we have someone that I admire so much. He loves to interpret data, but I won't do the introduction in my usual fashion. I'll allow him introduce himself. So, Max, take it away.
Thank you very much. Hi, everyone. Yeah, so my name is Max Cuvellier, and I do love data. It is true. This is not what I do most of the day. I work as the head of mobile for development at the GSMA, where we work on a lot of projects, research, advocacy at the intersection of like digital and socioeconomic development. But in my free time, I love to analyze data and work with a friend of mine, Maxime, in particular, looking at like startup fundraising in Africa and where the next trends might be coming from. And yeah, this is me in a nutshell, I guess.
So why data? Why do you like looking at trends?
Um, I don't know. I don't know where that comes from. I like to look at like I like to make something complicated into something like easy to digest. I like looking at a big like data set basically and think like what do people need to know about this? What are the different angles you can look at the data from and kind of distill that to people, because I know a lot of people don't have time to do it, and we're bombarded by more and more information, data, and so on. So I think there's really is value in just going straight to the point, doing the analysis, and giving those insights to people. That's what I really like.
Huh. Let's take a look at the origin story. I like to always do this for everybody I speak with. What exactly? Yes, you know you're passionate about data, but what exactly are you passionate? What other things are you passionate about? What did you study in school, and how has that influenced who you've become right now?
That's a very good question. I'm not crazy about anything in particular. I'm not like a huge fan of a specific topic or a star or anything. Or a celebrity or whatever, or a musician. I don't have this in me. But what I do is like I'm curious about a lot of stuff actually. I Yeah, I can go down rabbit holes and like through serendipity end up reading about stuff that I like never thought I'd be interested in. And I love to talk to people who are like specialists in their own domains and learn about what they do. I think it's just generally is a hunger for knowledge and learning more stuff. And yeah, going back to your question, what I studied, I just studied business school here in France, which was very generic, which means that basically at the end of business school, you get a kind of understanding about a lot of different topics, but you're not good at doing anything. And this is kind of something that I enjoyed because I still had to kind of quote unquote learn a trade when I left business school, and that really gave me the opportunity to go and explore and do a lot of different things.
Huh, interesting. So, your move to GSMA, what inspired that move, and how have you been able to build your career? Because I see that you've risen through different positions. How's that career path been like?
Yeah, that's a very interesting one because I'm not really good at like career plans. I know I have friends who do them and kind of have know where they want to be in 10 years. I'm kind of like I think the downside of being curious is like wanting to be open to just like kind of jump on an opportunity when it comes. And basically where it started, my first real job was working with mobile operators as a consultant in mostly in Iraq and Afghanistan. And obviously I got exposed to a lot of like kind of the development side of things and people working for the UN and NGOs and so on. There was kind of something that I liked about it, but that wasn't right for me because I really believe in like kind of business building commercial sustainability, business models, and so on to get to scale. Then I worked for a mobile operator for 3 years, and then I started interacting with the GSMA. The GSMA is a trade association of the mobile industry, and basically realizing that there was a small team within the GSMA called Mobile for Development, which I'm very lucky to head uh, today. which basically was looking at not just the commercial, the socioeconomic uh, impact side of things, but also the commercial side of things, and trying to bring the two together and just say, how can you connect more people? How can you include financially more people? How you can get more women online, and so on and so forth, but with a model behind that. And this is really what encouraged me 9 years ago to jump from the industry to what I'm doing today. And then through my time at GSMA, I just to be completely honest, when I joined the GSMA, I thought I would do 2, 3 years and then get bored and move to something else. Because there's also a downside of being curious is that you can get bored quite easily. But actually, it did not happen. They kept me on my toes for more than 9 years now. There were a lot of opportunities. I worked on gender for the first 2.5, 3 years, and then there was a research project and a program to wrap up, which I did, and then I got the opportunity to start my own project, my own program, an innovation fund through which we financed 36 startups across Africa and Asia Pacific, and then do a bit of fundraising, and then also work on energy, water, and sanitation, and then apply for when the head of department left in 2019, apply for the role and be trusted with this responsibility at the beginning of 2020. So it's really been I think for me being open to just trying new things, help people in other programs and so on, which kinds of builds your understanding, builds your skills, but also builds your reputation as someone who's like kind of trustworthy and as an enabler, which is something very important when you want to like reach higher levels eventually.
Awesome. I really like hearing stories of people that have risen within organizations or when organizations hire from within, because there is a lot
Mhm.
of talk about if hiring from within or hiring, bringing somebody from outside to upset the team balance. I mean, there's that whole conversation going on right now. Um, for me, on the personal, from your personal perspective, moving into that, applying for that role, what was that feeling like? Because I know a lot of people are in their jobs, they see a role that they potentially can fill, but maybe they're afraid or they're not sure that, or they're ready for that role.
Yeah, it's always. I think what you mentioned is really right. It's just there's always a risk of upsetting the dynamics because obviously, if you apply for the role and you don't get it, like what does it mean for you? Especially when at that time I had spent more than around 7 years in the organization, so it's kind of like you take that. You want to size that opportunity, but you take that risk because if you don't get the role, there is a risk that there'll be an impact on your motivation, or people will think there is an impact on your motivation, and that might just like not give you new opportunities and so on. In my case as well, I had peers who were also applying, but also ended up managing some of my previous peers, also like actually managing one of my previous managers. But I think if you're kind of true to yourself and you know why you're doing it, I think it works out. I do have I think there's a really good example there. I had one of my colleagues who was out of us all who could have applied for the job. She was the best positioned to get it. And honestly, I had this honest conversation with her and just said like, if you're going for it, I will not go for it because I think you could do this job really well. But I really respect the fact that she looked into what she was doing and actually like despite the opportunity for like career advancements and so on, she just looked at what she was doing and she said like this is what I like, and the content of that role that I could apply for is actually not what I want. And I think this is something that's quite important to be able to do as well, and it's a probably a hard choice in a career as well, just like maybe I haven't done everything I have to do in my current role, or maybe in my current role actually works really well for me and I don't have to go for the higher role or the different role just to progress my career.
Yeah, and then and that thing that I've noticed is, and this is something I noticed personally in my life and in the lives of my friends. I find out that when people branch out into business or entrepreneurship, they are better at it if they had probably worked in a corporate organization and understood leading people or understood structures. This is just a personal observation. It could be wrong. What are your thoughts on this?
Um, I think all the organizations are really different. I mean the GSMA today is a few hundred people. I used to work for Orange, very large mobile operator. I think at the time it was 160,000 people. So I I think you need to you can learn from all the situations, but you need to also be able to just like kind of detach the context from what you learn, because the dynamics and the processes and the politics of a very large organization and a smaller organizations are very different. And I'm not an entrepreneur myself, but I can imagine that when you start things from the ground up and start building your team and so on, you're going through a complete different dynamic. That said, what we've seen from, I mean, we've supported over 100 small and medium organizations, startups in the past 5 6 years through GSMA. So I've talked to quite a few of them. There is always what I identify. There's always this time where you. I was about to say you're lucky your organization is growing. Like, no, you're not lucky. You've worked really hard for it. But as a CEO, is kind of that point where you have to agree that you can't do everything anymore. Like in the beginning, you're setting things up. You might have one, two, three, five, 10 employees, and then you get to that point. I think the science says it's about 150 people is the maximum size of a group, after which like you can't know everybody and keep a connection with everybody. And I think this transition is actually quite hard to do. Haven't had to do it myself. I think my team is around 100 people, so I'm still in a situation where I can kind of know everybody and know what their role in and so on. But I can imagine that that switch to like this is too big for me to control everything is what's actually quite hard for a leader.
Okay. And as a manager, and this question is for people that are still, bring it building out their corporate career.
Mhm.
What will you think is the well? It might not just be one, but what do you think is the most important skill a manager should have?
Um, I have to go with empathy. For me, that's really the most important one. You just always remember that you don't know what people might be going through. You don't know what their background might be and so on. And if you don't always take that step of like, not everybody thinks like me. I think being aware of your own biases and other people's biases is very important. Just to be able to understand, like, okay, what are they trying to achieve here? What's in it for them? And like when they're struggling, being able to just like, you need time to regroup, you need support, I'm here to provide it to you. I think that is probably, in my opinion, the most important quality. um yeah, I'd go with empathy.
Huh. So tell me one. So well, this is this is totally up to you. But tell me one time you failed extraordinarily, and how you managed to pull yourself out of it.
um I think my first job, actually, I think that's where I failed. um, not in delivering what I was supposed to deliver, but basically what I did is I burnt myself out. I stayed 1 year in my first job. After a year, I resigned. The job was extremely demanding. It was also very exciting. It's the job I referred to earlier. I was working with mobile operators in Iraq and Afghanistan, based out of Dubai. I hardly ever traveled outside of Europe before, so it was all like new to me and very exciting. There was a lot of data to work with, and as I said in the beginning, I really like data. Um, but I burnt myself out, and I insist on saying I burnt myself out. I don't think the job did it to me. I did it to myself. And I'm really glad it happened very early in my career and at a time where basically I had the luxury to take time to regroup and so on. It's not like I had a family or mortgage or anything. And I know a lot of people can't afford to do this, but it taught me a lot very early on in my career about like work-life balance, and what it means to help people and support people, especially the more junior people, and just kind of creating that balance and not saying like you're curious, you're hungry for more, you want to show that you're worthy and so on. But at the same time, you need to kind of keep that balance and not burn your life from both ends.
Very, very important advice. As we round up, I'd like you to tell us between podcasts or articles or any written media, which do you prefer?
I'm a books person. Uh, if I'm honest, I'm not really good with podcasts and newsletters. I have this kind of like fear of missing out, and then emails pile up, and then I feel like, oh, I've missed the previous one, and so on. I'm really not good at that. But I'm really lucky to have a lot of like friends from a lot of different times in my life and different backgrounds and so on, that also love sharing content like me, and they kind of act like content scouts if I can. So I get my news about startups, about like fashion, technology. I get quite a few memes as well, and I get all of that from like a group of of content scouts that I like. But I'm not like I can't build that habit. I kind of not have the time, and also that kind of that FOMO in a way to just go through a certain newsletter or a certain podcast like week in, week out. So I'm not the best for this. But if you want book recommendation, like you'll need an
Oh
hour.
yeah, 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 yeah. So, what are your book recommendations?
I growing up, everything I read was from white, mostly European male, straight whiters. So these days, like there was zero diversity. So these days, I have a lot of catch up to do. So I try and read a lot of different things. I mean, a couple that come to mind. Oh, I read last summer. I read The Three Body Problem. It's sci-fi by I'm gonna mispronounce his name, Liu Xingxin, Chinese writer. 1,600 pages, so you need to like sci-fi. But I found it absolutely amazing. But generally speaking, I was talking about content scouts. I have a friend of mine called Marie Alix who started something called My Reading Challenge 54, where she basically looked at like African female writers, realizing that they were usually very much underread. So through that, I read about in the past 2-3 years 3 dozen books from female African writers. All of them were amazing. Coming to mind, there was one called Petroleum. It's in French by Sandrine Bessora. It was very good. July's People, Nadine Gordimer, Nobel Prize winner, very good. Women at Point Zero, Nawal El Sadawi, I'm probably mispronouncing her name as well. And maybe last one at the moment, I'm reading a recommendation from my friend Kia, Octavia E. Butler, Black American dystopia writer. I love dystopias. Very much underknown, at least in Europe. The Parable of the Sower, the first one, was very good, and I'm reading The Parable of the Talent, which is the sequel now. Written in the 80s, but about a new leader for America who wants to make America great again. That might sound familiar.
Interesting recommendations. Talking about content scouts, I think I do have them, but I never just call them that because I have friends that send articles or podcasts to me to say, "Hey, this could be interesting. You should read this," or "Hey, go read this book." I think I should cultivate that relationship more.
Yes, that's so important. And be one yourself as well.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Thank you, Max, for spending this 15, 16 minutes with us. As we leave, I'd like you to share 3 insights from your career.
Okay, thank you very much for having me. I'll probably repeat myself a little bit. I would say empathize. I've said it already, but you don't know what people are going through, and it's super important. The second one, something I learned early in my career, my first internship, when you don't believe in yourself and you're in front of someone who believes in you, accept that belief and make it your own. And then the third one is just be curious. Never stop learning, exploring, sharing, challenging yourself, and letting others challenge you.
Great stuff. Thank you, Max. Once again, I really, really enjoyed this conversation. Hopefully, sometime in the future, I get you back on again.
Yes,
Have a great
please.
day.
Thank you very much.
Bye.
That's all on today's episode of The Grinders Table, and thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this episode and you'd like to support the podcast, please share it with others, post about it on social media, or leave a rating and review. To catch all the latest from me, you can follow me on Instagram and Twitter at Monsieur OM. That's at Monsieur for Miss Time French OM. Thanks again, and I'll see you next time.